In this section, we're going to talk about building trust and inspiring action. Let's hear from Simon Sinek. He says, great leaders and great organizations are good at seeing what most of us can't see. They're good at giving us things we would never think of asking for. Again, you remember when I said at the beginning that the customer is always pulling us to the what. We want the same thing that your competitor does. But to be a great leader, you got to move beyond that. Now, trust grows when actions match beliefs. When a company's words and actions consistently align with its whys. Simon Sinek has what he calls the celery test. If your why is healthy living, choices like celery and vegetables make that belief obvious. If you go into the supermarket and you don't buy those healthy foods, then you're not following in your actions the beliefs that you have. Now, trust, when it comes to the why, comes from first clarity. And as some of the questions I've asked you in the prior section probably got you thinking, we may not be as clear on our why as we would like to be. We've got to be super clear so the why is unmistakable. We've got to have discipline when daily actions reflect the why. We don't get sucked into the things that take us away from our why. And consistency, when every customer touch point's aligning with our why. So clarity, discipline, consistency, then we've got great alignment. And that strong alignment attracts loyal customers and employees who share the belief. And that builds a culture that withstands setbacks in competition. There's two things I want to highlight here. The first one is that we have to state it so clearly so that people follow us. Why do you follow the brands that you love? You follow them because you believe in their message. You believe in their why. And also, I asked you a question earlier where I said, have you ever been disappointed? Of course. But we're so forgiving of the companies where we believe in their why that no matter what, we'll stick with them. I have an amazing story of the t-shirts that I wear. I started buying them at Nordstrom in San Francisco originally, maybe, when I was 23 years old. And to this day, many, many years later, at the age of 60, I will not buy my t-shirts from anywhere else. I always buy them from Nordstrom, even though I live on the other side of the world. So let's look at Harley-Davidson here, and we can see Harley-Davidson sells a belief in freedom, not just motorcycles, leading riders to tattoo the logo as a sign of their shared belief. People tattoo the logo of this brand on their body. So again, Harley gives riders freedom and a sense of adventure. And Apple consistently reinforces its Think Different motto with simple, innovative products and store designs. Remember, their why is challenge the status quo and think differently to spark innovation. And Patagonia, which is an outdoor gear and apparel company that sells down jackets and the like, wins loyalty by standing for environmental protection, attracting customers who share their values. And their why is protect and preserve the natural environment. And I told you before about seventh generation. They match its promise to connect people to nature's wisdom for well-being from ingredients to production. Remember, their why was safeguard the health of the next 7 generations. And United Services Auto Association is a financial service provider for families of the military, mainly focused on auto, but they do other types of insurance. And it says they serve military family with services specifically built for their needs, demonstrating its purpose. Serve and protect military family. And Burt's Bees. Now, I don't have Burt's Bees right now. In fact, I love it. It's so expensive, but when I feel like it, I buy it because I like it. They stay true to its mission with natural ingredients in products from lip balm to skin care. And there was a great documentary I watched about the original Burt. Should look for that. So they promote natural living and personal care. So these are some examples. Now, early supporters and symbols build momentum. Movements start with innovators. This is like 2 to 3% of the people who are true innovators. And those are the people that we want to connect with right away. And I'm looking for a diagram of this. Hold on, see if I can get it here. And, oh, there it is. So this is the diagram that he's talking about, which is a bell curve. And the innovators are right here over to the left. And once we get the innovators with our why, then we can move on to the early adopters. So then we're getting, between 15 and 18% of the market. Most people feel like they got to go for the whole market. No, go for the people who are passionate about our why. So you want to win these two first. As their passion spreads your cause, and it turns them into visible representatives and proves that your products work. And at this point that you've got these two groups, you've now got 15 to 18% adoption, then the others will follow, the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. This is the concept of diffusion. It's also a great book called Crossing the Chasm, and this helps us. But the main thing is focus on the people who are connected with your why. So symbols, rituals, and visual actions make the why real and build belonging, turning belief into certainty. Think about the Apple notebook computer and the little Apple design on the back of it. Loyalty deepens as people move from thinking your brain is right to believing and to knowing. Now, there's also personal brands. Think about Oprah Winfrey's long-standing media presence and commitment to empowering individuals have created a strong, positive connection with her audience. She's super connected with her audience, particularly back in the day when she was on every day. Simon Sinek says, passion alone can't cut it. For passion to survive, it needs a structure. A why without a how has little probability of success. I think this quote is great to remind us that it's not just about why. We got to identify that first, but then it's about how. And we need a how type of person and a why type of person running our business. And then, of course, it's about the products. Now, before we go on, I have to talk about another person that I really grew up with watching, and that's Michael Jordan. And his, of course, unparalleled basketball skills and competitive spirit, combined with his charismatic presence, have made him a unifying role model and a symbol of success. He was a clean-cut guy who didn't get into all the trouble that pro athletes get into. But what I love about him, if you ever watch the documentary called The Last Dance, which I've watched a few times, it just shows his absolute competitive spirit, which I just love that. So let's look at some examples of building or losing supporters. The first one is TiVo, and this is a digital video recorder pioneer that changed how people watch TV. And the product was called TiVo DVR. And TiVo failed by selling features, not a belief. Now, the why was supposed to be to give viewers control over how and when they watch TV so that they could record and not watch all the commercials and get distracted. But TiVo ended up struggling. Now, in the case of Apple, the iPod succeeded by selling music freedom, not storage. Steve Jobs famously pulled the Apple iPod out of his little pocket on his jeans, and he said, 10,000 songs in your pocket. So again, we're trying to challenge the status quo at Apple. And Harley-Davidson rallies and jackets signal a tribe, signal liberty, freedom. Again, they give riders freedom and a sense of adventure. And here's a company called D-Light Design, and they have affordable solar lighting and energy for off-grid homes. D-Light spreads solar power through early rural adopters. Their why is bring affordable energy to off-grid communities. And here's another interesting one, Goldie Blocks. This is STEM, which is science and technology, engineering and mechanics. I can't remember what the last one is, but they're, technical focused company inspiring girls to invent and build. And so they have STEM building kits and toys and the like. And they're sparking a movement by inspiring girls to invent. And that's their why. Inspire girls to invent and build confidence through STEM. Now, how hard is it to build a trusting environment? In your family, in your business? I want to introduce you to my father. This is two early pictures when he was young. The picture on the left is when he got his PhD in 1965, the year I was born. And the picture on the right shows me in the middle and my older sister on the right and my middle sister on the left. There's my dad. And when I see that picture, it reminds me of how trusting he was, as a father. And that's as we grew older as a family. And we always had a close relationship. That's me in the upper left when I graduated from high school, and then me when I graduated from university. And then me as our family was growing older with my sisters. And there we are as we were all getting older. And unfortunately, my oldest sister, Kelly, second from the right, passed away from cancer in 1998. So we became a family of 4. This is my parents and me on a trip on an Alaska cruise, which was great. I met them in Alaska. I flew from Bangkok. They flew from North Carolina. And this is one of the many pictures when I was visiting them in North Carolina. But as they got older, my mom had had some strokes and my dad was also struggling. And there we are. My mom and dad insisted that we go to see the graduation at Penn State of their granddaughter, my niece. Now, near the end of his life, I asked my father one question. What are you most proud of in your life? He had accomplished a lot. And he said, I built a trusting family. And this picture I took on the last day of my father's life. We had a coffee, and then my father had a hemorrhage, and he died soon after. He was 82 years old. But to say I built a trusting family really blew me away. So my question to you is, have you built trusting relationships within your family? Have you built a trusting work environment? Have you built trusting relationships with your customers? Have you built trusting relationships with your suppliers? And just to highlight this concept of trust, just yesterday I had a class of 40 students and I asked them, how many people do you trust? There was about 3 students out of 30 that said, no, nobody, 0. And the average of those students was about 2 or 3 people. Trust is rare. When you build trust in your business, in your family, in your relationships, you're building something very rare. And that keeps people with you. So here are some questions to think about from this section. Do my actions and decisions consistently match my why? Who are my early adopters and supporters? How am I engaging them? Did I forget them and I went away from them? What symbols or rituals make my brand's purpose visible? So what have you learned in this section? Trust comes from clarity, discipline, and consistency in living your why. Early adopters and visible symbols turn belief into momentum and belonging. And brands grow loyalty by proving their purpose through every action and choice. And I would argue that you also learn about the power of trust. So congratulations, you've made it to the end of this section. So what's next? You're going to find out how to keep trust strong as your business grows. I'll see you in that section.